Hi, I'm Gene Shara, one of the editors of Blackbirds First Flight, an anthology of dark, twisty stories now available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and other online retailers. Today, we're talking with Stephen Bagley, whose story, Grave Matters, appears in Blackbirds First Flight. Good morning, Stephen. How are you?
Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. In Grave Matters, your main character is Justina Grave, and I'd like to hear some more about her. Can you tell us about it, please?
Justina made a brief appearance in a book I tried to write about 20 years ago. And she showed up. I didn't know much about her. She carried a sword, which so far the sword hasn't shown up in the short story, so I don't know what happened to it. But I was very interested in her, and I really liked the name. And then when it came time to look at Blackbirds, I thought I'd like to go back and find out what her story was. And then I set it in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and the stories take place in Tulsa and around Tulsa just because that's my home state, and that's where I'd like the stories to be set.
That sounds good. Stephen is going to read an excerpt from Grave Matters to us. And Stephen, go ahead.
All right. Grave Matters. The dead man on the blood-drenched bed had clearly seen better days. Justina Graves slowly approached the body. His heart had been cut out of his chest. Crow and raven feathers were scattered around the room, along with other spell materials. Charming, she muttered. Her nether senses probed for signs of magic. She found many. Dark tendrils of energy hovered in the area, visible to any mage. Something had fed on the victim's life force and used that energy to power a spell. She frowned. Obviously the spell was to raise a revenant, but the scent of the spell was strange. Either the caster had studied a different variant of magic than she had, or, and more likely, he didn't know what he was doing. I found him like that, Lorinda Fielding said, standing at the doorway. With all those markings on the wall, I thought of you. Justina moved to the other side of the bed. She checked his pockets. No wallets or keys. A few dollars in cash and change. No rings or watch. No shoes either. Old acne scars puckered his face, and several of his teeth were gone. Perhaps a homeless man? She took out her cell phone and snapped several photos of the corpse's face and appearance. Perhaps Detective Fitzgerald could help identify the body. She had assisted the detective in defeating a ghoul several years ago. He understood the back streets and alleys of Tulsa. He had worse things than criminals. Did you call the police? No, Lorinda said. Should I have? No, Justina said. You were right. This is something for me. I might call Fitzy into it, but I'll see. She studied the symbols on the walls, written in the victim's blood. She frowned at the syntax, badly written with only a couple of true words, and those were garbled at best. Whoever attempted this was no adept. Justina turned back to the corpse. Strangely, she still felt quite a bit of magic in the body. Usually a spell would drain the energies invoked by blood sacrifice. Perhaps the spell had failed, or the caster had been interrupted. She rose, pulled her .357 revolver, and strode over to the bathroom. Without pausing, she kicked the door in.
Wow. To find out what happens next, get your copy of Blackbird's First Flight at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or other online retailers now. Thank you for joining us today, Stephen.
My pleasure.
Glad we could be here. And thank you, readers, for listening in.